So our next step is to start with the JavaScript part of the project, which is our age calculator application. So for that we need to use the script.js file. Now inside of this script.js file, first we need to get the ID of the form. So the ID of the form is age calculator. So I'm going to copy this ID. So we need to get the ID of this, and after that we need to listen to the submit listener. So what I mean, I'm going to show you once I complete the code. So first here we need to fetch the form element. So it is actually age calculator form. Age calculator form. I'm going to use the camel case typing, and then here we need to use the document dot get element by ID, and instead of that we need to specify the ID inside the double quotes. So this is the age calculator. Now we have find the ID of this form element, and next we need to add the listener to this particular form age calculator form variable. So here add this particular age calculator, and I'm going to set the listener by using the add event listener. So we are going to listen to the submit event, and then we need to actually provide a anonymous function, which is an arrow function that has an event as a parameter, and then we need to start its bracket, and instead of that we need to call the calculate age function. So this is a function that we need to create. So here I'm going to use the function calculate age, and then we need to start the round brackets and then its curly brackets. Also, whenever if I control save it, if I come back here, so if I click it, then you can see it's actually asking for fill out this field. Now inside of this particular listener, when we submit it, we need to also call one function here, which is the event dot prevent default. So this particular is used to actually stop the page being refreshed, because by default whenever we submit the button inside the form elements, then it's going to refresh the page also, but we want to display the data in a form of list. So for that reason we are actually use here this particular function. If you can Google it like this prevent default, you will get more information about this particular function. It is a JavaScript function. So now the main thing is we need to calculate the age. Now inside of this calculate function we need to create bunch of variables. I'm going to make some spaces because we need to write a lot of code inside this particular function. So the first thing is we need to create the date object, and also we need to actually fetch the current date of the system. So the first thing is we need to fetch the current date of the system. So for that we need to create here a const variable, and then it is going to be as today. So this is going to hold a value new date. So once we call this one a new date object, then it is going to have a current date. From the current date to the specified date of birth, between this range we are going to calculate the age of the date of birth, means age of the person. So through this way our age calculator working, and after that we need to actually fetch the data from this input type. So for that we need to also create the variable, so which is also type const, and this is actually a birth date input. So this will be the variable name, and is equal to we need to fetch the ID. So document dot get element by ID, and then inside of that we need to specify the ID name of this input type. So if I come back to the index.html, so here this is the input type, so the ID name is birth date. So I'm going to copy it and coming back to the script.js, and I am going to paste it here. Also we need to actually get the value, so I'm going to specify here a dot, then the value. So we want the value of this input type. So this input type value is actually a text. So for that now we get the value, which is like if I enter here like 25, 10 and like 2000. So if I enter this value, then you can see whenever this is actually treated as a string. So we need to actually split this string into three parts. The first is the date, the second is the month, and the last is the year. And also we need to split, we don't need this particular hyphen. we not require these ones. So for that we need to create here some variables. So we are going to create 3 variables. So first we need to create the birth date parts. So this will be the first variable. So make sure you type the name of the variables very carefully, because most of the variables names are very similar. So this is the birth date parts, and this is actually equal to the birth date input. So this will have the string that we are getting it from the birth date input. Now it has the value. So we are going to use this particular birth date input variable. So with the use of the split function, we are going to split the string. So we need to split it into 3 parts. So we want to remove it. So to remove we need to specify the string that we want to remove, means the character that we want to remove from the string. So we want to remove this. If I control save it, then you will see nothing, but I am going to show you with the use of the console log. So I am going to here use the console.log, and inside of that we need to specify the variable name, which is the birth input, means birth date input. This is the first variable that will actually display the string as it is, that is actually present inside the input type. And after that we need to display the, again I am going to duplicate it into one more time, and inside of that we need to display the birth date parts. If I control save it, and if I just come back to my browser, I'm going to maximize the browser, and also I need to open my developer window, means I need to showcase the console as well. Right now you can see nothing is actually visible inside the console. So I'm going to add here this particular date of birth. If I calculate it, then you can see this is the input, that is this particular line of code show the date of birth as it is, but we have splitted this particular string into 3 parts with the use of this particular line of code, and we are going to print it in the second console log statement. So now we are actually remove these particular hyphens from the string. So next step is we need to store these particular values in their corresponding variable names, because this is the birthday, this is the birth month, and this is the birth year. So we need to create these 3 variables. So I'm going to actually minimize it from now this particular window of the browser, and coming back to the Visual Studio Code again, and here we need to type the const, and then I need to create the birthday variable, as I already told you, because we have splitted the birth input into 3 different parts. So birthday is equal to birth date parts, because right now the parts is stored inside the birth date parts variable. So it is actually not treated as a string. If I come back to the browser again, so you can see the day is actually stored in the 0th index, because split function does actually what? It's going to give us the new array as well. So that is the reason now the thing is actually stored inside the 0th index, which is the birthday, and the month is actually stored in the first index, and the year is stored in the second index. So that is why I am actually here specifying this 0, and then we need to add here a terminator, which is optional. Then I am going to again create here another variable, which is birth month, and then again it is going to equal to birth date parts, and then to specify the square brackets, and then we are going to pass here a 1, and then we need to use here a -1. Now this -1 is basically used to actually minus the 1 month from the JavaScript date object, because by default the date function of the JavaScript, the date object, I can say that the date object of the JavaScript has a month started from 0 to 11 index, and there are total 12 months. So on 0 we have January, on 1 we have February. So if we go like to index up to 11, so on the 11th number we have December. So it means the date of birth that we have added here is like, now if I enter it and calculate it, which is the 10th month of the calendar year, which is October. But in JavaScript date object, the October is actually stored at the 9th. So that is why I have used here a -1 to actually minus the birth date part, which is the birth month, not a birth date part, which is the birth month. with the -1 so that we get the 9, which is October in case of the JavaScript date object. But in calendar, it is actually the 10th month. So I think you gets my point, but I want to explain to you guys. Next, we need to create the another variable which is birth year. So we need to store the year. So it is going to be birth date parts. Then it is actually stored at the index 2. Then we need to terminate it as per your wish. So after getting these all three parts, we need to pass it to the birth date by using the new date object. So again, I am going to here create another variable const, and then this is the main final birth date. So this date is actually going to have a capital camel case typing name is equal to, then we need to again create the new object of the date, and now at this point of time we need to pass these three variables as a parameter to this particular date object. So first I am going to pass here a birth year, then second I am going to pass here a birth month, and then third I am going to pass here a birth day. Then I am going to save it, and then I am going to actually display the values of all of these three variables. So again I am going to here duplicate into many times by pressing the Alt and Shift key and the down arrow key. So here I am going to display the birthday, which is this one, and then I am going to display the birth month, and then here I am going to display the birth year. So this particular is just for the tutorial purpose. Okay, so once we complete the entire code, I am going to just simply remove these console statements. If I control save it, coming back to the browser again, and here if I enter the date of birth, click on calculate, then you can see we are getting the birth day, birth month, and the birth year. Okay, so if I come back to the Visual Studio Code again, so our next step is we need to create a one helper function inside this particular calculate age function. Now this function is actually going to check the input type whether it is a date or not a text. Means it is going to check the input type, which is this one. If I now going to resize the window, so we need to create the helper function here. Just I already told you. So first I am going to set the const, then is valid date. So we need to check the valid. So this is an anonymous function that is going to accept a one date parameter, means it is an arrow function. Then we need to start its curly pair of the brackets, and inside of that I am going to check for the condition. So first I am going to return, then starting the return block, then I am going to split into multiple times. Inside of that, first I am going to use the object dot prototype dot and then toString, which is this string, and then I am going to call, and here we need to use the date, which is this particular parameter, the local variable for this particular function. So if it is equals to the object date, now this object date is actually a pre-made JavaScript object date. If it is that a condition, so this particular thing does what? If I enter the if condition, then it will become more clear to you. Just I am going to complete the code first. So here I need to use the double AND operator, which is the AND operator, and then I need to use here check whether the value is nan, whether the entered number is not a number, is nan. If it is that a case, then we want to return this particular thing. Alright, so this is now the code is completed inside the return statement. Okay, and if I just structure the code like this so that you can see the code in just only one window. And after that we need to use this function. So here we need to add the if condition, and inside of that I'm going to use the is validate function, that is this one, and inside of that we need to pass the date of birth, which is this birth date variable. So I'm going to pass it here birth date variable, and inside of that means we are going to check whether this particular entered birth date is a date of birth. So we are going to check it with this particular helper function, and we are calling this helper function inside this if block. So if it is like I already told you in the index part of the HTML, means in the inside the index.html, we have used here a input type text. Whereas in my previous JavaScript course, I used the input type as date of birth. So we have a calendar to fetch the date input. But right now we are actually using here a text. So it can be like enter a random text, or it can be a number. So that is the reason we need to check for this particular condition. If we have used here an input type date, then we don't need to do this particular stuff. We don't need to check for these conditions. We can easily get the date of birth inside this particular birth variable through the input type date of birth. But because we are using the input type text, because the main idea of this project is we can enter the date of birth manually, and then once we enter the date of birth manually, we can check the age of the person. So that is the main theory behind this particular age calculator project. So that is the reason we have to do this particular conditional stuff, and also we need to break the particular day, month and year into these three separate variables, and after that we pass this again to the new date object. Okay, so enough talking, it's time to complete the code. Once, if it is not a case, if it is not a date of birth, then it is going to display an alert. Suppose you have entered here just a random text. So in that case, it's actually going to display a alert message. So we are going to use the alert. Inside of the alert, we are going to display invalid date. Invalid date format. Please enter. So I'm going to use the proper case, means capital case typing. Please enter a valid date in. So we need to provide the hint to the user by using dd and yy format. Okay, so this is what we actually want to display inside the alert. Alright, and after that we don't want to execute the code, so we need to use the return statement. Okay, so this is for the code. If I control save it and if I run the code, and here if I calculate the age, then you can see this particular alert box pop up. Invalid date format, please enter the valid date in dd format. So perfect, our condition is now working. So the next step is we need to calculate the ages, minutes, times and hours. If I just show you the final application, we want to calculate these particular stuff. So coming back to the Visual Studio Code again, because now we have specified the check for the invalid inputs. So if the user entered the proper date format, so we need to calculate the month, age and the other required things for the project. So for that we need to create here a bunch of variables. So again I'm going to here use the const. So first we need to create a variable age in milliseconds, and then this is actually going to use the today minus current birth date. So this will be used to get the age in milliseconds. So once we calculate the age in milliseconds, with the use of this age in milliseconds, we can calculate the age in seconds. So for that we need to create another variable which is age in seconds. So after defining the age in seconds, then this is going to use the age in milliseconds to calculate the age in seconds. So for that we need to use here a math.floor function. So math.floor function. So this will be used to actually get the whole positive value, means the positive whole number, and inside of that we need to use the age in milliseconds. So age in milliseconds, it is going to be divided with the 1000, because if we divide the age in millisecond with 1000 milliseconds, then we are actually getting the age in seconds, means we are getting the seconds, because in 1 second we have 1000 milliseconds. And after that, if we control means shift and alt and then press the down arrow key to actually duplicate this line of code, and inside of that we need to calculate the age in minutes. Age in minutes. Now to calculate the age in minutes, we need to use the age in seconds. So in 1 minute we have 60 seconds, so we are going to divide it with the 60. Then again I am going to duplicate it into one more time. After calculating the minutes, then next we need to calculate the hours. So hours, so for that we need to use the age in minutes. age in minutes, and we need to actually, in 1 hour we have 60 minutes, so we are going to divide it with the 60. Again I am going to duplicate it to one more time. Then next we need to calculate the age in days. Age in days. And for that we need to use the age in hours. So it is our age in hours, and we have, in one day we have 24 hours, so we are going to divide it with the 24. Again I am going to duplicate into one more time, and instead of that I am going to call it here age in, like our weeks. So age in weeks. So we need to calculate age in weeks. So for that we again going to use the age in days variable value, which is age in days, and instead of that age in days, so in 1 week we have 7 days, so we are going to divide it with the 7. And after that we need to calculate the months. So once we get the days, we can calculate the months. So again age in months. So we are going to divide the age in weeks, means age in days, not weeks, age in days, by using here a value called 30.43 and 6875. This is a random approximate value. I can use here a 31 because some of the months has 31 days and some months has 30 days. So I'm going to use this approximate float value to actually get the day in the nearest possible whole value, because this will be not exactly calculated. We are going to approximately calculate the age in months. If you want to calculate it more specifically, then you need to work with the floating point values. So you need to also take care of the precision and the decimal values also. Okay, so I'm just going to give you the basic idea how we can calculate and build this particular type of the application. Okay, and after that we need to calculate the age in years. So again here I will type the age in years, and then we need to divide it with, because we get the age in days, we all need to divide it age in days with the value 365.25. Now we have a 365 days, but in leap year we have 366 days. So that is why we are going to use this approximate value to actually divide the age in days to calculate the age in years. So once I calculate these values, so if I console log it, then it's actually going to display the values inside the console log, which you can do it. But we want to actually set this data to the result container so that we can display it like this one. So for that we need to actually update the inner HTML of the result container. So here we need to create the another const variable. So it is actually result container. So first we need to get the reference to that result container, which is get element by id. So we need to get the id of that particular result container. So this is the result container. I'm going to copy the id name and coming back to here and pasting the name of the id. Similarly, we need to get the id of the result as well. So I'm going to copy it into one more time, and here I'm going to type the result and then the id, which is result. Okay, so now we get the reference to the result and the result container. It's time to update the value of the result inner HTML. So we want to update the value of the inner HTML. So I'm going to use the template string here by using the backtick key. So template string, and then I'm going to split this code into multiple lines. Then we need to add here a division tag. So I'm going to copy this particular division tag from here and coming back to the script.js file, and I'm going to paste the code here by just formatting it like this one. Again I just need to format this one because we want a h3 paragraph element. So the first one is actually our result item, that is the class that we want. The next we need to add the h3 and then the paragraph element. So the first we want to display the age of the person. So for that we need to use here a age, and then we need to use this colon, and then we need to use here a template because we are using a template string. So we can use the curly brackets, okay, and then use the $sign curly bracket. Now we can actually here specify the variable. So we are actually using here a age in years variable. age in years, and after that we need to concatenate it with the use of dollar variable, become dollar curly bracket, and then here we need to specify the age in months. Alright, and after specifying the age in months, then we need to use the modulus operator, and then we need to provide here a 12, and then we need to concatenate with the months, and then again we need to here use the dollar symbol, then curly brackets, and instead of that we need to specify the age in days. So this will be the variable value, and then we need to again use here a modulus operator, and then we need to use the 30, and then we need to concatenate with the days. So if I control save it, but right now you can see it is not going to display the data, because we also need to actually close this division and also this paragraph tag, and here we need to close this particular div tag. Okay, so if I control save it, and the thing is we need to set the display style of the result container to block. So for that, here we need to again call the result container variable, result container dot style, because we need to update the style property of the display container, which is display is equal to, we need to set the display to block. If I terminate the code and if I control save it, if I enter the date of birth, if I click on calculate it, actually it is saying the invalid date format. If I control save it and if I refresh it, so actually it is not happy, it is saying the date is invalid. Why it is invalid? Because it is already working. So coming back to the conditions here, now we have added this check. So it is saying that the date is invalid. So actually I have here, because it is outside of the array, that is the reason we are actually getting it here, and then we need to remove this one. So if I control save it, so that is the right procedure to write this particular code. If I control save it and if I again enter here date of birth, click on calculate it, now you can see the age is actually displayed, which is 22 7 months. So here we need to also add the years, because right now we actually forgot, we added the 7 months, but here we need to concatenate with the years as well. So YEARS, years, and then I'm going to use this as capital months, then this one for the days. Control save it, and if I enter the date of birth again, click it, then you can see now we are able to see the 22 years, 7 months, 16 days. Okay, so similarly we need to create the other result element as well for the display of the months. Okay, so again I'm going to do that. So again here we need to use this one, then here we need to add the value to months past, and then we need to remove these whole lines of code, and instead of that we need to use the variable age in months. This is what, and then again I need to copy this one, again paste it here, then we need to use here a weeks past, and then here we need to use the age in weeks. Again I'm going to copy this code here, paste it, and then inside of this particular one we need to change it into days past, and then again here we need to use the age in days. Then again I'm going to copy this code from here, copy it, and then this is going to be hours past. So this one is our hours past, and then here we need to pass the variable age in hours. So we have passed months, weeks, days, hours. The only thing is left minutes and seconds. So again I'm going to copy this one and paste it here, then this one is going to be like minutes past, and then we need to here use the variable name age in minutes, and again I'm going to copy this and paste it into one more time. This one is actually for the seconds passed, and the variable value which is age in seconds. If I control save it and if I enter the date of birth, click on calculate age, then you can see we are getting the values. So right now you can see the output one project is the output of the project, and this is the final version of the project. Now both of these two are actually looking little bit different. That is because the margin property and also this is the font size is actually used is actually 18 pixel. That is why it is actually appear little bit bigger than this one. So to fix this, we need to add the actually margin property to this like age container. That is age is actually our, if I come back to the Visual Studio Code, so this is our h3 element. So we can add a margin property to this age one, which is a margin bottom. Then it will be resolve the problem. And also we can increase the like a font size of this to 18 pixel or this one to 16 pixel, 17 pixel or whatever pixel value you want to use. So coming back to the style.css, and also I'm going to just maximize this the final one, and this one I'm going to resize it into again so that I can place it like this layout. So coming back to the h3, so I'm going to apply the margin bottom property. So margin bottom is going to be 10 pixel and the font size I will be using here 18 pixel. So now you can see it's actually solved the problem. Now it's actually looks like the similar. If I just show you, it's actually similar, okay, because inside the browsers it looks a little bit different. So this is what the application is built up successfully, guys. So that is for this particular JavaScript part of the age calculator application. So if you like this course, then definitely leave a review, because your review definitely going to help me to increase the quality of my courses and also the quality of my future courses. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.